Hi, I'm Sean Schroeder, and I'm here with Robert Rose and Scott Abel. We're at the Intelligent Content Conference here in San Francisco, and yesterday in Scott's keynote, he mentioned the topic of personalization. We've been working with Robert on a white paper that he recently wrote called Connecting Content Marketing Experiences. In it, he discusses the concept of persona-ization, and so I wanted to get these two together and figure out, where do these two worlds meet? Are they the same? Are they different? Is there a conflict here? What do you say, fellas?
So I think that personas are important, but I think they were designed for people who create content to make it easier for us to do our work. And I don't always believe that it delivers the sense of individualized, personalized content that it could if we took a different approach. So I think that I have a strong opinion about moving toward personalized content.
I don't think we disagree, and I think it's a really interesting question that you bring up, because what we're really talking about is where does the idea of personalization come, where the content isn't necessarily such that we want it to be shared everywhere. In other words, it's a very personal experience, versus where what I mean by persona-ized is it's relevant, it's meant for me, it's meant and most impactful for me, but it's stuff that I want to share with my friends, family, etc. And so it's almost this situation where content, as it gets deeper into the funnel, becomes more and more personal, right? So as the shopping experience becomes more and more intimate, the content itself becomes more personal. So where in your world you talk about this idea of being relevant in measurement and words and language and the idea of regionalization, and as we move further in, which I would call persona-ization, and as we move further in, where you get to things like addressing me by name, understanding my habits, my shopping habits, and understanding how to deliver to me the products that are meaningful to me, it becomes more personalized. So it's interesting. I don't think we actually disagree on this. I think it's actually that we agree on the spectrum that we're talking about here.
Right.
I think what agitates me about it is that people. I'm always agitated. People talk about it with such passion. It's just great, right? When we tell people, speak the truth, speak what you believe, and sometimes it's just a lot of malarkey.
Yeah.
And I think that people put this overemphasis on personas.
Yeah.
And sometimes they say all you need is 4 persona groups. And that's true if you're trying to aim some content at 4 different kind of categories of people. Let's say the lowest common denominator and then a higher education level. And the argument is if we write it for the person down here who has the lowest education level, everybody above them will be able to understand it.
Yep.
It just might not be as engaging. Okay, I get that, especially for things like instructions and things that you want people to just understand.
Right.
Then when you want to compel people to do things, I think it has to have that personalized touch. And I think if we can start to think about how do we localize the content first for things like language and units of measure and maybe where the person is and what they prefer, and then start nailing down the differences between the people who are in the persona groups. Yep. I think that's where we get the magic, and it's going to be hard, and I don't think it's easy, and I think that people poo-poo the idea because it's just easier to have the 4 little buckets that throw people in. And I don't think it's a great excuse for not trying.
Could not agree more. I think that is, and so it comes back to that thing. It's a process, right? It's a spectrum. And as you move further out toward the top of the funnel, you want to sort of generalize more, right? Because inherently you're casting a wider net. And so when you look at those handful of funnels, or personas rather, and you say, okay, I'm targeting this kind of person with my content, and I want to deliver value to this kind of person. And as they step further through the customer journey, you want to become more intimate with them, right? You want to deliver more and more and more and more relevance. And I think exactly to your point is, as the customer works through that spectrum, you want to become more personal, right? So it's, there's this idea of, at the top, you want to be personable or personable, and then as you get down, you want to be personalized.
I can agree with that.
And right. So it's to your point, instruction manuals hopefully could be directly personalized for my specific needs. But as I get out to that TV commercial, or I get out to that print magazine that I'm creating, or I get out to that blog that I'm creating to create value, way up here just to drive the value of my approach to a general consumer, it's going to be much more, it has to be inherently more generic, because we just can't scale to every sort of, dozens and dozens and dozens of types of customers.
I think you bring up the good point, though, and that's that scalability. The reason that we can't scale is because we keep continuing to limit ourselves by just doing the same things that we've always done the way that we've always done them. And I know that frustrates both of us because we're like, dude, in the magic world, you could make all these problems go away. But the world isn't magical.
Right.
But at the same time, that's not an excuse to try to add a little magic.
Yet?
I've got a unicorn with a rainbow. But I mean, I feel like sometimes people give up. Because they feel scared. I think they think this is too big of a challenge.
Well, that's a great point, yeah.
And then what happens, though, when somebody who disrupts the situation comes in and says, you know what, we're not going to do a whole bunch of these other things, but we're going to do this personalized content thing right. And all of a sudden, the customers start to feel like, hey, this brand cares about me more than the other brands. Now you're fighting a different fight. You're fighting the, we should have done this, but we didn't. And so now we're kind of screwed. And this other people, even though they may or may not be better, they appear to be better. They appear to pay attention to me. And maybe that's not going to cause a brand to fail.
Right.
But it won't cause them to grow at the clip that they could.
Sure.
And it won't keep the loyalty the way that brands that really understand this do.
Sure. And it's not, so the key is that there's no such thing as a neutral content experience, right? It's either negative or positive. And so when you sort of realize that, and going to your excellent point, which is so many brands, marketers, teams operate out of fear these days, that fear of change, where individual teams are working on, my little channel, my little world, and it becomes this proprietary little kingdom, to put the magical spin on it, that they run. And so instead of managing content or managing personalized content or even persona-ized content, you run into the situation where it's like, I can't do it because the only thing I do is this little blog, or I only do instruction manuals. So you don't have the data across all those different channels and how consumers have traversed them all to even have the ability to do it to begin with.
Sure.
So you've got to join all of those things together into a synthesized intelligent content approach before you can even do the cool things you're saying. And to do that, you've got to get over the fear of losing that proprietary ownership of that channel.
And you also have to get over the fear of working with other people in other disciplines and in other departments of your company. I sometimes wonder if you're creating personas in the marketing department and I'm creating personas in the technical communication department, are we on the same persona page?
Right.
Like, I mean, I know we might have called them different names or whatever, but like if we're totally aiming at different people, doesn't this warrant some attention?
Exactly.
Like,
exactly.
Wouldn't it make sense?
How many times have I gone into big businesses where the product people have personas, the marketing people have personas, the customer service people have personas, and they're all sort of vaguely similar but yet different because they've all got different, and it's like they're not working towards serving the same customer. They've done this, it's a checkbox, right? We did personas, check, got it, done.
Right.
They're not using them as part of a process of delivering better, more relevant content.
Well, speaking of delivering it, you and I talk about it, right? So we're up there evangelizing why you might want to think this way. We're trying to challenge people to think differently. And tool vendors want to come along for the ride, and they want to sell people the tools. And the irony is that a lot of the tools that actually can help you create personalized, relevant content, they don't use them to market to their own people. And so the people that are receiving the emails and the communications that we want them to do better at, we say, come to our conferences, pay attention to these people, these companies can help you, but they won't even do it themselves. And so I think they're missing this huge opportunity to show, it's the eat your own dog food thing, right? But it also shows the magic. The magic isn't like Scott and Robert made beautiful slides and they told us and we believe them, but we still don't know how to do it and we can't see it.
Right.
But if you see the experience and you start to have it and you start to answer the questions from the vendors that are providing these technologies and your personalization experience gets deeper and deeper, you start to say, oh, I think I see what they mean.
Yeah.
And that's frustrating to me because there aren't really great examples, and the companies that do it really well don't want the competitors to know they do it this way for obvious reasons.
Absolutely. I mean, and that gets to sort of the point I made in today's keynote, which is this, it is content and our ability to deliver it personalized, persona-ized, basically relevant and meaningful to the customers that we serve is really the only differentiator we have left. And so if we are actually going to compete in the 21st century, in the next 5 years, 2020 and beyond, we have to get good at this, and we have to get good at it fast.
We do, and I think the other point that I always try to make is that we hear so often that people don't have enough time to do everything they want to do. And so I think the argument is, if there are better ways of doing things, and you could re-engineer them, and then you could go back and start being more efficient, maybe you could use that time to innovate.
Yeah.
Because I get the frustration. We're asked to do so many things with our limited amount of time and resources that, of course, some people are going to give up, because it's just easier to keep doing the status quo than it is to make the change.
Yeah.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Robert. Is there anything you'd like to let the audience know about before we close out?
Yes, I hope you'll join me this September the 30th through October the 2nd in San Jose, California for Information Development World, my conference. Yeah, it's so good. It's all about people who create amazing experiences with content.
Fantastic. And that goes right in. So I've got a new book out, Experiences, the Seventh Era of Marketing. It talks all about how experiences and this new methodology that we're putting forward called content creation management can help your business sort of move forward with a content strategy. And I'll be at Info Development World in San Jose as well. So we'll see you soon.
Buy the book.